Hey everybody, this is me, Undead Viking, and this is Statecraft. Statecraft is a politically themed card game that isn't just about elections. Now, that's what I thought when I first heard about this game, but in actuality, there's several different scenarios that you play the game under, and some of them are about elections, but some of them are about overthrowing governments, some of them are about sectarian violence, and all kinds of other different things that can be going on. But ultimately, what it is about you running a political faction and trying to make sure that you satisfy a certain victory condition before the end of the game. And that could be having the most supporters, or it could be having the most radical manifesto, or all kinds of crazy things like that. And when I actually got the game and I opened it up, we played it with me and my buddies, we really enjoyed the variable nature of it, because it's one of these games that has tons and tons and tons of cards. I love games with tons of cards, and I'll mention that probably several times during this review. But I found myself having a lot of fun. I thought the theme really was evident in the game. Too many times I've played card games that just could be about anything, but this one really did feel like you were playing political agendas and things like that. But anyway, let me show you how to play Statecraft. We'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, awesome. Alright, let's learn how to play Statecraft. Alright, so this is a game where each person's going to have their own little player board that you see in front of you. They have a round marker that each person can keep track, or you can just pick somebody to keep track of the rounds. Then you place one cube on each of the zeros on the four different areas of interest that your supporters are going to have, that you're going to be trying to claim. And also you're going to have this is your budget, and you don't really spend the money in the game, but you notice how it goes from -5 to +5. It'll go up and down. If you ever wanted to do something that would cause a negative, like negative budget or positive budget, that would push you off -5 or +5, you cannot do that action. So that's how the budget works as far as that goes. Alright, so to play the game, you have to pick a scenario. It comes with this little deck of scenarios of different things. It'll tell you what the name of the scenario is, any special abilities that go on. Like here, supporters count as one budget surplus for the purposes of winning this scenario. The game ends when all the supporters have been claimed. The winner is the player with the most extreme manifesto. The 4 politicians means that's how many politician cards you will draw when you're hiring politicians, and you get to pick one. And the number of supporters tells you how many supporter cards you put out and that's all the supporters they have. So you're just going to go ahead and take, and there's lots of them too. I mean, there's the Viva la Revolution and the Egalitarian Society and so forth, and each one of them has its own special rule and the way that you set it up. So we'll just take one here. This is the coup d'etat. There's 7 supporters out there. The game ends when one player has 4 supporters, 3 politicians, and whoever has the most supporters will win the game. And whenever a player announces or denounces a security policy, all players get to draw a card, and they draw polities and actions card. So that will be the scenario we put out. We take the rest of these scenarios, we put them aside, we won't be using them. Each person, and also we got to take 7 supporters. So let's go ahead and grab 7 supporters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we take the rest of these supporters, we get rid of them. We won't be using them, so let's make some room here for these guys. And what we're going to do is let's just take a look at these so I can kind of explain these. So supporters have just a thing like single parents, academics, military personnel, and so forth. These numbers up here correlate with these down here. You'll be taking policies that will increase the levels of these bars here, and when you have reached the minimums of these, like 4 and 3, so once you reach 4, and that's socialism, and the eyeball is authoritarianism, once you reach those, you would be able to claim this as a supporter. And obviously, depending on the scenario, that is something you want to do, because obviously the more supporters you have, the better chance you're going to win. So it's important to note that if, like, you got to a 4 and a 3 on your chart there, if for whatever reason you eventually lowered it down to like 2, you don't satisfy this anymore, but you would still get to keep this supporter. They don't leave you. However, another player can steal them from you if they eventually get the same requirement and they play a card. But I'll talk about those actions here in just a little bit. Now, some of the other cards will have a blue one like this. And what that means is the maximum level of, in this case, socialism, could be 5. You know, so you like that. in order to claim this, whereas these you just have to have higher. The most socialism you can have as far as your purpose or what have you, your manifesto as a politician, in this case can be 5. So that's what those 2 different colors are standing for. So we're going to go ahead and just lay these guys out because everybody's going to have access to these, and these are what we're going to be fighting over in this particular game of Statecraft. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get each person a faction leader. Faction leaders are just going to be the person that is kind of like, well, it's running your faction. And so they have just a name, a picture. These are the specialisms that they have, and those determine which policy cards you're able to play on those. I'll explain that, as always, in just a little bit. But then it tells you their special power. So draw 1 more card than usual when recruiting politicians. So let's just take Peyton. Well, that's going to be she's going to be our faction leader. But obviously, there's a bunch of these, and each person has special powers and what have you on them that make them different. Each person gets one. Whatever ones you don't use, you just put aside and won't be used in this particular game. Alright, so now, after we've got that all set up, each person then will draw 3 of these guys, 3 of these policies and action cards. So they have those as their starting hand. One of the things you always be doing is your hand size is 3. After you get done with your turn, if you have more than 3 cards in your hand, you got to discard down to 3. If you have less than 3 cards in your hand, you draw cards of up to 3. Now, in this deck, it is possible that there's going to be events and emergencies, depending upon whether or not you want to put those into the cards. I'm not going to show those to you right now, but I will touch on those once I show you all the different actions and how the game is played, so just keep that in mind. Alright, so, on your turn, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking at your actions and policies. So we actually only got 1 policy card, and we got a couple of action cards. So, action cards are just that. They're actions that you can take that allow you to do certain things. Like remove 1 policy from an opponent's manifesto and add it to your hand. So basically you can steal one of these cards if they put one down. Or contingency planning. When a player is forced to draw an event card, reveal it and shuffle that card back into the deck. So you can also, another action card that you have. So, and those are action cards, as you can probably guess, are situational, and the card pretty much tells you what they do. Now this is a policy card. So you can see, and luckily you notice that this little coin here matches this coin on Peyton. So we're able to use this card if we wanted to. And you'll notice that, like border terrorists and tax, it's a 1 and 1, and then on the other side you flip it over and then you say free trade zone and you see a 2 and a 1. Now you'll notice that this is obviously this little number here means it would cost 0 on our budget to use it, and then this one says it would cost us 3 in our budget to use it. Now what you do with this, if you decide you're going to use it, you pick which side you're going to do, and you're going to say whether you announce this policy or denounce this policy. And so if you announce the policy, so let's say we go like this, and if you announce it, you put it on top. If you denounce it, you put it on the bottom. And when you go ahead and announce it, like we did this, then you go ahead and you adjust the policies numbers by the numbers on there. If you denounce something, you then obviously you put it on the other side and you lower them by those amounts. And that's how you kind of raise and lower these banners. Now after you've done that, you can go ahead and look and see if you satisfy the needs of one of the supporters that are out there. And if you can, then you can claim that card. Now also on your turn, what you can do is you can do the politician action. And politicians, in this case, you draw 3 because that's what our scenario says. You draw 3 politicians. You draw 3 politicians and you're going to pick one to use as your politician. And then when you choose the one, so in this case, we're just going to look here. And I should mention, okay, see this guy's got 2? He's a senior politician. We can't take him right now because the only way that you can take a senior politician is if you replace a politician you have with another politician. So let me explain that. So let's say we took Uche Musayev because he's got the welfare, and we don't have that. So if we ever had any policies that have that symbol on them, we'd want to use that. So we go ahead and we place it next to it. Now the 2 places next to your faction leader are considered to be the inner circle. So you'll have certain things like in the game that'll say your inner circle gets this or that or the other thing. That's what that means. You can place another one on either side as well, so they can be a little further out. If you ever had a situation where you had like 2 of them like this, and this guy for whatever reason got fired, you can fire politicians or was gone, then they slide in. So then that person becomes their inner circle for it. But if we had a situation where he was in there and then we did a hiring a politician option and we got this guy, we could replace him because these two match. And so then I'd have this senior politician off to the side, and he would match. He'd have two symbols on him, and obviously he'd offer more versatility as far as now. Any politicians you don't take are placed into the discard pile. If the politicians deck ever runs out of politicians, at that point you just shuffle the discard pile up, and you make a new deck. So you don't run out of politicians. I should mention that if you are going to do the hiring a politician action, you do have to discard one of the cards from your hand. So like if it was a card that you didn't think you were going to be using, maybe this one, the event card one, you go ahead and you just put that in the discard pile. And I should also mention, if you ever get through the action deck, and there is a scenario that says once you get through the action deck, that signals the end of the game. But if that isn't the scenario you're doing, then you would just shuffle up the discard pile and have a new action and policies deck after that. Also, with hiring politicians, you do have a maximum of 4 politicians available to you. So basically, you can have 2 to the right and 2 to the left of your faction leader. You can't ever have more than that. So why do you hire politicians? Well, the maximum number of policy cards that any one person can have is you can have 3 that you are announcing and 3 that you are denouncing. You can't ever have more than that. Plus, you get the extra symbols if you don't have them. So later on turns, let's see if I draw back up to 3 if we get any. Oop, I drew too many. Put that one back. So here we have 2 locks, another action card. Well, so here we have, and so another action that we can take at our next turn. But and then we could then possibly increase. We'd take a look at these. Oh, that's a good one because it's right across the board. As long as we're increasing all this, and you can probably guess, and you probably figured this out. But just so you know, anytime you see a blank on one of the policies, that means that it doesn't do anything. And then you see a blank on the supporters cards, that also means that they just don't care about that particular part of your manifesto at all. It doesn't matter. It's the other things that they care about. And so eventually, hopefully what you do, and I'm trying to if we had, I'm trying to just kind of mismatch this together. If we did this, and we had these 3 policies, in this case, above our faction leader. And you'll notice that in this case, we'd have a 4 red, like so. We'd have a 2 yellow, and we'd have a 4 blue. Green would have 1. All right, so then we could then claim the single parents, because the single parents, like here, would want a 4 in socialism. They want a 3 in authoritarianism, and that would be a supporter for us. Now, if we're the first person to take a supporter, then we would get this card, which is the incumbent card, which will matter in certain scenarios and situations that the incumbent would give you different powers, or you'd be affected by events in a certain way. Whoever has the most supporters gets the incumbent card. So if somebody else gets 1 more supporter, you're still tied. But as soon as somebody would have 2 supporters compared to my 1, then I'd have to give up the incumbent card. But as soon as you get the majority, you take the incumbent card and you keep it until somebody has more. So I should mention a couple things. You can fire a politician if you want to. If you ever fire a politician and they have policy cards underneath them, and you fire them, and these wouldn't really match with this one, then you would go ahead and you'd fire this person. He'd go to the discard pile, but you'd get to take those policies back in your hand to theoretically announce them for another politician that you would take. If you ever lose a politician by some other manner due to an event or something, then you don't get to do anything with that. You have a situation where the policies that they have in their hand would actually go into the discard pile instead of that. Now you can steal supporters, and the way that supporters are stolen, let me just go ahead and put these back underneath here. If another player satisfies the need, so let's say another player has the 4 red and the 3 blue, and they want to steal that, they can discard 2 cards from their hand and then just steal the supporter as long as they satisfy the needs for this particular supporter. That's if I am still in good standing with that group. In this case, I am. Now, let's say for whatever reason, like my policies, I had different policies that lowered my socialism down to 2. Well, I still have them as a supporter. They don't leave. But if somebody wanted to steal them and poach them from me, it would only cost 1 card to poach that particular card from me. So like when you aren't satisfying what your supporters want, they become easier for other people to steal. All right, so that is how the game of Statecraft is played. Now, I talked about the different events and things. I want to talk about that quick. Now, you can, at the beginning of the game, shuffle these cards into the actions and policies deck. And if one of these pops up during when somebody draws their cards, they draw the event and they automatically just take care of the event and do it. But it isn't one of their 3 cards they draw. They still get to draw up to 3 cards. And so if they draw an event card, events come in 2 things. They come in emergencies and just events. So here's like a corruption scandal, scapegoat, lose 1 politician. And then if you are the incumbent, you have to forfeit the turn. Or close ranks, lose 1 supporter, and then if you're the incumbent, you discard a card. Basically, if you're the incumbent, you're in the lead, usually. And so that's why these things hurt. Emergencies are just that. So this is nuclear meltdown. Any politicians with the infrastructure specialism are discarded along with all of their policies. Very policy card discarded from a player's manifesto. That player draws a card. So obviously emergencies are just that. They are emergencies. Here's another one, like a natural disaster. The incumbent player must choose one of their supporters and just remove it from the game. It's just gone. So then there's things like economic boom, opportunist taxation. You can free play economy. So, like when free play happens, that's an important terminology, and you can also, this one says free play infrastructure as well. Those terms of economy and infrastructure refer to the economy or infrastructure policies, and what that allows you to do is play a policy card, either one for free. You don't basically have to take a turn to do it, and then you get to draw a card when you do that. So basically, you don't have to take an action to play a policy on one of your faction leaders or politicians that you have. So there you go, and that's completely variable. The number of event cards that you want to deal and mix in with the Statecraft, just basically depends upon how crazy you want the game to be and how random you want it to be. I, for one, play with a ton of these because I think they're fun and I like how they mess with the players and mess with the situation. So there you go. When I played the game, I really enjoyed everything that was about it. I liked the variable nature of it because of all the different cards. I love games that have tons and tons of cards with tons and tons of different things on them, and Statecraft does this. I love having cards that do multiple things. I love different player abilities and things like that. So I mean, I knew I was going to like the game. I knew I was going to like the theme. But let me talk more about that in my final thoughts. Alright, so Statecraft. Woo, Statecraft. Alright, so as I said, I like tons and tons of cards. I like, and I mentioned the whole thing about using cards for different abilities. I mean, the fact that you can just take these cards and you can flip around to kind of mix and match and figure out which way you want to play them, and the fact that you can use them as both a positive and a negative announcement or denouncement. I mean, it's every time you play it, and I didn't really get a chance to show you like with the wide tableau when you have all 4 politicians and your person, and you're kind of like mix and matching and putting things together. It becomes this weird puzzle. And the thing about like firing a politician, you're like, well, why would I ever fire a politician? Well, a lot of times what happens when you fire a politician, it's because they become stagnated with a bunch of policies that just don't really help you anymore. It's a situation where it's like you need to push your anarchy up, but for whatever reason, this dude's got a bunch of stuff on him that like is very that isn't helping the anarchy, and so you need to cut your losses, ditch the zero, and get a new hero. And so that kind of thing where like you can kind of see, and especially if you've watched like political dramas, things like that, or if you've been watching, oh man, I can't remember the name of the thing. It's on Netflix with Game of Cards or Cards. What? I screwed that up. But anyway, you know what show I'm talking about with Kevin Spacey. It's like they don't really see politicians as being people. They just see them as bargaining chips and tools, right? And everybody's always trying to kind of scramble to the top and do their thing. House of Cards. Haha. There's like 8 people who are like busy typing that into the comments or whatever. And like, oh, you remember it. But anyway, regardless. So there's a lot of really cool stuff going on in the game. I mean, The fact of the matter is that it is like kind of a weird race as you kind of like are trying to build up your structure, if you will. You're trying to, like, so you can claim the victory conditions that you have. But you also are like always under siege from everybody else that are like trying to steal your stuff, or like, playing different action cards to mess with the people that you have, causing political scandals and all those things. And like I said, everything in the game evokes the theme. It evokes that political struggle. It evokes that shady, back alley dealings and what have you that, I enjoy. I've read a lot of novels about those things, and I've watched a lot of movies about that. And so when I have like kind of pop culture references as we play these games, it kind of has a lot of fun, and adds a lot to the game as well. Mechanically wise, I mean, the game is very straightforward. I mean, you can kind of just see in your tableau, you can add up the points pretty quickly. You can figure out, obviously, you're keeping a running total on your board. So, it is, as far as the game, like, play goes, it's really, really simple and straightforward, but has, a lot of structure to it. It has a lot of depth. And the variable nature of the setup with the different scenarios, the different faction leaders, all the different cards, I mean, just adds to the repeat plays and what have you. And it's definitely a game that if you have, like, politically themed friends, that like having those discussions, or are a part of, the discussion as far as, like, the political realm we're currently in, you're going to find lots of modern-day counterparts to a lot of different cards and policies and actions, whatever, that you have. And so it kind of engenders that conversation as well. And I've always enjoyed games that promote the people at the table to actually engage in more than just the game, engaging in a conversation, engaging in a lively, joking manner or whatever. And, and maybe arguments, who knows. So there you go. That's Statecraft. If you enjoy card games and like any and a political theme, I think this is pretty much a must-buy for you. If you just like card games and like the whole variable setup and stuff like that, I think it's something you definitely need to check out. So if you have any questions about it, ask away. I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, this is the Undead Viking, and I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye.